Welcome to the Q Podcast.
Q is about conversation.
If we're really concerned about ending poverty, we've got to be more concerned about creating justice.
Our cultural products as Christians need to both defy and resonate with the culture.
And God's doing amazing things. His church is expanding, His church is growing.
It's not what's the purpose of my life, it's what is the purpose that's been assigned.
Stay curious, think well, advance good. This is Q.
Welcome back to another edition of the Q Podcast. I'm Gabe Lyons, and we're so glad you joined us today. And I think you're going to be glad too and inspired after you hear this Q Talk, this 18-minute talk delivered at our Q Denver event. And part of the joy of getting to bring these to you is you get to just kind of sit in the midst of hearing some of the great leaders who are working in every type of sphere of culture, who care about being faithful in the area that they've been called. And this person, I can't wait for you to meet her, Kelly Clark. She's somebody who's incredibly humble, number one. She's not the type of athlete that hypes who she is. Many people maybe wouldn't recognize her face, and yet in one specific sport, she has been the elite champion, and that sport is snowboarding. And so as a young person, I mean, long before she was an adult, she was on a mind-blowing 23 different podiums receiving awards. So she won and outpaced her male competitors, female competitors. She's won Olympic gold. She's won Olympic bronze. She's won over 10 X Games medals, 9 of them gold. So this is a person who's a complete champion in her sport and pursues excellence in every way that she can. And yet she understands why she's been placed there. She doesn't take herself too seriously. She's not somebody who thinks she's there only because of her hard work. She understands that God works in all these kinds of mysterious ways, but that part of what she challenged us in Denver to think about is that when we have these platforms, how are we to think about them? Are we to get our value from them, or are we to understand that God's at work through us and that our job's to be faithful? And so you'll get to hear from her. I think the one thing you'll miss out on is not getting to see some of the epic tricks and photographs that we actually had displayed in the venue as people were listening to her talk. But if you want to see those, go online to qideas.org and you can actually watch this talk right now. It's there, or search it by searching the name Kelly Clark. And you can also sign up to receive alerts anytime a new talk is released. But I don't want to wait any longer. I want you to hear Kelly. And so she's walking on the stage right now. Let's listen to Kelly Clark.
It's just a privilege to get to be here to share with you guys today. And I'm going to share a little bit about my life. I want you guys to catch a glimpse of what my life looks like. I have the privilege of getting to pursue my dreams and getting to pursue God. And it's I hope it's inspiring. I hope that you guys take something away that inspires you to be more passionate about what's in your heart, because I've found that God's into what's in our hearts. He just wants our hearts. And I've been a professional snowboarder for the last 20 years, which is crazy. This was my 17th consecutive X Games appearance this season. And I'm glad that Gabe didn't give you my age, so we'll leave that a mystery. But you can do the math. I'm old for a snowboarder. But I started snowboarding before it was cool. There was no such thing as the X Games, and it wasn't an Olympic sport yet. They would barely let us on the mountains when I started. And you don't think you make really big decisions when you're 14 years old, when you're a teenager. But I remember the first year that snowboarding was in the Olympics was 1998. I had recorded the Olympics on a VHS tape. Anybody remember those? I recorded it and I watched it after school, and I remember everything about that day. I remember what I was wearing and where I was and what the weather was like. And I said, this is what I want to do with my life. This is what I want to give my life to. I was 14 years old, and 4 years later, I found myself on my first Olympic team. And I've had the privilege of representing the U.S. in the last 4 Olympic Games. I have a gold medal and 2 bronze medals. And sports are an amazing thing because it's really a rubber meets the road type of scenario. It's like you really find out what you're made of. And And I'm gonna share little parts of my Olympic experiences, because kind of every 4 years, I get to see what I built. I get to see what I'm made of. And I mean, I train 4 years for a 30-second half-pipe run. It's a pretty bad plan. But it's my life, and I get to walk it out with the Lord, and it's been an incredible journey. I'm gonna show a little clip here to give you guys a little bit of a reference for what keeps me busy.
Aiming for number 70, also aiming for her 12th X Games medal. Will she get it tonight?
Let's take a look. Styly frontside, 15 feet, the highest we've seen tonight. Into the backside 5, tail. Oh, look at that 1080, like nothing. Coming in switch, comboing it into the 720. See how she finishes with 900. And she's like, hey, I want one more. And nice full pull for Kelly Clark.
I had the idea that when you are successful, it goes hand in hand with being happy. And I quickly found out that was not the case. When I was 18 years old, I had reached the pinnacle of athletic achievement. And I thought I was going to have this fulfillment. You know, I think our greatest needs as humans is to be significant. And we look for that in all sorts of places. We look for it in relationships. We look for it in achievements, through performance, through sports. And I quickly found that I was not fulfilled by performing. And 2 years later, when I was 20, I ended up getting radically saved, which is a story for another time. But you know, our God is not the God of either or. He's the God of both and he's way better than we think he is. And he is so for us, and he's so for our dreams. Jesus came that we would have life and life in abundance. And there's something that comes alive in us when we do what we're created to do. And I get to be in an industry where people would never step foot in a church. People would never have an opportunity to encounter the love of God. And it's one of the great privileges of my life to love those people well. Because just like me, they are searching for something. They're searching for that sense of significance that can't be found anywhere. A few years back, I was writing down my goals, as I do every season. And I send them to my coaches, and we talk about how we want to achieve them. And I was just about to hit send on my computer. And I went to hit send, and the Holy Spirit stopped me, and he said, Kelly, that's not what's in your heart. And I'm looking at my goals and what I had written down. And I had written down that I wanted to go to the Olympics. And you know, when God calls you out on something, you kind of like half pretend that you don't know what he's talking about, but you know exactly which one he's talking about. I'm like, this one? And it said I wanted to go to the Olympics. And he said, yeah. He said, you know, if you want to win, you should write it down. And I said, what? It's okay to want to be great? And I had this paradigm shift that day where it's okay to want to be great. God is into what's in our hearts. He just wants our hearts. There's a scripture in Proverbs that I love that says, hope deferred makes the heart sick, but a desire realized is a tree of life. There's so much life that comes from pursuing our dreams. And, you know, if we want to win, we should write it down. It doesn't mean that you're going to. But it means that you're going to live. And only things that are alive can produce fruit. So what are the things that are producing fruit in your lives? What are the things that make you come alive? Because it might just be the very area that God wants to use you in. It might be the place that you're called to. It might be the place that you get to go into to love people really well. By knowing who he is, we in turn know who we are, and we're freed up to be who we are created to be. And we need to ask ourselves, where are we getting our significance from? Snowboarding for me had turned into something that was more of an obligation than something I got to do. It was something that I got my identity from. And, you know, that whole identity thing, it's, to be honest, it's not something you ever figure out. It's something you continually work on. At least that's how it's been for me. But there's moments in my career where I can see that I'm growing. And I think sometimes that's success for me, is growth. And I had a conversation after the Vancouver Olympics with one of my teammates, and she came up to me. We were done competing, and she made this statement, and she said, "Wow, are you so glad it's over?" And I thought that was such a strange comment. And in that moment, I realized that I was doing it for the right reasons. I wasn't doing it to try to arrive. If I've learned something about the Olympics, it's that it's not a place that needs to be treated as a destination, nor is it something that should define you. And I think a lot of the time we spend our lives trying to survive. And in your own lives, if you ever find yourself trying to arrive somewhere, if I can just get here, if I can just achieve this, if I can just get this job, there's a really good chance that you're trying to be defined by it. And it should be a red flag for you to go back to the drawing board, to be like, where am I getting my significance from? Because we should be freed up. When we know who we are, we get freed up. I get to do what I love with the one that I love. And that's what we're created for. We're meant to know our significance and then go into places and be that encounter, to encounter God and for people to encounter him through us. That's what my life has been like. You know, the other thing that we need to ask ourselves is how do we impact the world around us instead of be impacted by it? You know, there's a few questions that I get from people when they meet me and they hear that I'm a professional snowboarder. There's probably 3 of my most popular questions. The first question is, do you know Shaun White, that flying tomato guy? And I'm like, yes, I do know that flying tomato guy. And the next question I get usually is, can you do a backflip? And that is also, yes, I can do a backflip. And the third question is how are you a Christian in the snowboarding culture? How does that work? You know, that's a culture where people don't share my values. People don't share my beliefs. What their idea of fun is really different than what my idea of fun is. You know, there couldn't be more differences that we have. And I think a lot of people don't know how to walk out their belief system in a culture that's countercultural to what they carry. And we think that the world is going to change us instead of us changing the world. But I believe that God's called us to change the world and not be changed by it. And so when people ask me that, and they say, how are you a Christian in the snowboarding culture? Well, I say it's really easy. Because what I believe to be true about God is not circumstantial. It doesn't change based off of what goes on around me. My environment does not get to shape the truth that I live from. I establish values in my life that I live from. I have non-negotiables in my life. The truth of the Bible is what dictates my life. What goes on around me, I will not compromise my values to get my needs met. I will not look around to make decisions and decide what kind of choices I make. You know, when we live with integrity, it's kind of like you make your mind up ahead of time before you get there. And that's what it's like to be a Christian in a culture that is different than the culture that you carry. You make your mind up ahead of time before you get there. And you're able to transform the world around you and change it instead of be changed by it. You know, if I'm a professional athlete, I'm a professional athlete. And what if I looked to my circumstances to decide what kind of choices I would make as a high-level competitive athlete? You know, I mean, you guys who are from Colorado, you know it's cold here. It's freezing here. Don't be fooled. Snowboarders do not like the cold. We just dress really warm. What if I saw it was cold out and I didn't want to go up and go snowboarding? What if I decided that I was tired and I decided not to go out and to train? I wouldn't be a very effective athlete. I wouldn't be a high-level competitive athlete. It's the same sort of thing. It's the same principle. We can't look to our surroundings as Christians to decide what kind of choices we make. We need to cling to the truth, and that becomes the backbone of all of our decision making. And our actions will reveal what you believe to be true. And that's how I'm a Christian in the snowboarding culture. It's not complex. It's really simple. I know who I am. I know that I'm significant outside of performing. And I get to do what I love with the one that I love. And I get to love people. I was at a conference a few years back, and we want to call ourselves leaders. You know, I think that's what a lot of people in this room, we're leaders in industries, we're in different places in leadership. And I was at a conference, and they were asking us, it was a panel discussion, and I was on this panel with all these really fancy people, very mayors and lawyers and very, very well-educated people. And the question was, at what point did you know that you were a leader? And everybody had all these incredible answers. It's going down the line. I'm one of the last people to speak, and I barely made it through high school. That was a success for me as far as education. Everybody has all these incredible answers. But it came down to me, and they said, Kelly, what point did you know you were a leader? And I said, I think I knew I was a leader when I started thinking about other people more often than I thought of myself. And you can learn all the right things. You can go to all the right conferences. You can become very well educated. You can take principles and apply them in your culture and influence people. And I think we have to get healthy, that identity thing. We have to get that down. It's kind of like like the videos on the airplanes when the mask drops down and it says, please put your own mask on before assisting other people. It's like we have to get healthy. We have to have a firm grasp of our significance and who we are and what's in our hearts. And that will be influential. But if you want to be a transformative leader in your culture, we have to think about other people more than we think about ourselves. And that's what it's been like for me as a high-level competitive athlete. I want to be the same person that I am when I'm winning, when I'm losing, behind closed doors and on TV. I want to live a life of consistency that disarms people. People don't care what you know until they know that you care. And that's what it's like in my world. I build relationships, and I wake up in the morning and I ask myself, how can I love and honor people today? And that's how I'm effective in my industry. I have the identity thing. I have the plan, the significance. I have those things established in my life, my non-negotiables. And those are good. But what makes things truly transformative is a heart to love people well, because all of those things that we can learn and all the books and things, material we can obtain, it doesn't work without love. And the only thing that will never fail is love. It's the only thing that can bridge the gap between differences, between disagreements, between different value sets, between different belief systems. If we can think about how we can love and honor people well, that's when we will see transformation in our cultures, when we get really healthy and put our own mask on first before assisting others, and then take your life and serve other people and love people well. I think there's people out there that are looking for that sense of significance that I was looking for. It's the only thing everyone is wired, and it's the only thing everybody is driven to. And perhaps through me and through you, people will have that encounter with the love of God, and they will come to know that there's a true significance that can only be met by God. And it's a great privilege that we have, is to go into every culture, into every industry, into every workplace, into every family, into every sports team, and love people well. Thank you.
I hope you enjoyed hearing Kelly's story as much as we did in Denver. She's not somebody who regularly speaks and shares this, so it's always unique when we get to hear kind of behind-the-scenes thoughts and how a leader like her is leading in their field. I hope it encourages and inspires you to think creatively about maybe what is God trying to do through the place He's called you. And so as we go forward, invite your friends to join us for the next episode. We'll be back next week with another talk that we'll get to listen to together. And I hope you'll join us next week for a new edition of the Q Podcast.